Hello guys, let's return to Starcraft 2 for a while in this video. We started with this game on this channel with my son Velenek about a year ago, and we will try to return to this game time to time. There are many features of this game making it popular, even though it was already published in 2010. Two of these features are pronounced here in this video: competitive focus and elaborated replay system for analyzing games. My brother is a competitive person, I guess, and that's why he naturally gravitated towards Starcraft 2 versus mode. By the way, I am presenting here his recently painted cool figurine from Warhammer 40k representing a Grey Knight as his avatar. We tried cooperative mode together with my brother too, but I felt it unfortunately makes him a bit bored. Well, let's be frank, this vid is not here to train high-level players. This is more for people interested in the atmosphere of the matches or in the playstyle of players around the Gold League level. I am playing the Terrans and my brother is the Zerg. This is a home-based match when we are sitting at the same table in the position that we cannot see each other's screen. It is unranked match. We were both in the Gold League at this time. I chose this match, which is already slightly more than 1 year old, because I feel at the time our chances to win were very even. Well, the first game of the match I named recently, Close the Damn Door. You can probably guess already which building is going to be critical here. It can be a good idea to assign this building to a hotkey, isn't it right? When I was playing with my brother later 2 versus 2 arranged team games as his ally, I was scolded for the same mistakes sometimes. I think I'm a bit less flexible and I don't like quick changes. That can be a reason I tend to play Terrans. Our build orders should in general be followed tightly. Of course, you have to respect your speed of play, training repetition of the build and mouse movement precision, which is apparently not very high in my case. That's also the reason I chose a refinery first build. I feel it is much easier to execute for me, even though it is not meta play against the Zerg. Original plan is to build a supply depot at the ramp with the first SCV going out of the command center, then refinery when population count is 15, then barracks with the guy who just finished the depot. Refinery should be filled with workers immediately. When barracks is done, reactor for quick troop training is produced. This is a bit risky idea, but probably more appropriate for this level of play, because in simplicity there is strength. More advanced is to plan 1 marine then reactor, or even 1 reaper, 1 marine then reactor to be safer against quick Zergling attacks. When barracks is done, orbital should be started at the command center to allow mule quick mining and scans for energy. Second command center should be also initiated at the natural expansion. Then quickly factory, second supply depot and second refinery follows. But we have to stop theoretical speech now. My brother Janus decides to unleash the Zerg. Hammering the defense with a strong pressure is an uneasy situation for both sides. If the defender holds, the Zerg attacker can be a disadvantage because he has to sacrifice some larvae for units, and he didn't use them for drones to gain the infamous Zerg economy advantage. But if the line of defense is broken, then successive attacks can always hammer the defender deeper into the defense, stripping him of all possible threats and initiative unless there are no more active options. If the supply depot is closed on time, the mess is of course not so serious. Back to the build orders, I understand they are like a strategy described with very deep details. If the player is skilled, he can execute a build order well. If not so much skilled, at least he can follow it like a general suggestion. It is usually better than doing things on the fly, just to catch your opponent unprepared, especially if you are playing against anonymous opponents on the ladder. With build orders, you can keep things under control to greater extent, and you can more easily force your opponent to react towards your moves. In the long run, precision of the training and entering known situations in your games because of prepared openings can be more helpful than trying to invent something crazy every game. Execution is very important also. Here, with more Zerglings entering the base and economic lines, the situation doesn't look appealing for the Terrans. Production structure for the humans is so-called 1-1-1. That means one of each of possible production buildings, barracks, a factory and starport. Decision to make Marines from reactor barracks seems correct, because Marines are produced quickly, they can occupy a bunker, and they have solid damage per second against Zerglings. Widow mines from factory are a solid choice to provide desperately needed splash damage. They can destroy a whole unit of Zerglings per hit if the Zerg player is a bit careless. Probably more experienced player can choose Hellion Speeders here, but they are very APM intensive. Liberators from Starport can be done without a tech lab, and they can cripple mineral lines quickly to backbite a bit. But there are some challenges also. Mines and liberators must be sieged, which is burdening the turn player with more actions per minute. When the production buildings were hit by the Zergling pack, it was probably the best idea to fly with them to the frontal entrance of the natural to make some form of thicker wall. The buildings can provide a lot of value like this, and I didn't use this possibility at all. The survivability of the bunker will raise a lot in such a case. Zerg gained a clear advantage here. We can see a large disparity of population at this moment. Terrans are trying to do some damage with the Liberator, but the Zerg is going to produce some Corruptors very soon to counter this attempt. Slightly more inaccuracies from me, like an unborrowed Widow Mine, are enough for the Zerg to finish the game soon. I am showing mainly the spending tab and active units tab from the replay information panel that the viewers can evaluate the relative position of the competing players within a game. By the way, I like Starcraft 2 polished replay interface that it provides the player's camera option, which helps to understand where the player was focusing. This I miss a bit in Dawn of War Soulstorm playback interface. So, what was the reason of Terran colony demise in this game? I believe mainly the clumsiness, which opened the defense. The defense became weaker with each consecutive attack. Here we can see the unborrowed Widow Mine, and we can already congratulate the merciless Zerg leader Janus. This is a clear victory, and we can be silent few seconds for the demise of the Terran colony. In the second game, named in the post-game analysis Keep the Bugs Out This Time, I am adapting the build a bit. I'm apparently a bit shaken. The nerves can influence the quality of play a lot. I guess if the build order is not trained so deeply, the distress can influence a player a lot, and he can be surprised. How far is he away from the appropriate succession of buildings and actions? The attention is the hidden resource of Starcraft 2, as stated by Mr. Max Yu from Terrancraft website, and attention is for sure influenced by emotional states. If somebody trains a real-time game a lot, he naturally reaches lower level of emotional arousal when playing it, because he is not so much surprised and overwhelmed as before. So players training more have not only the advantage of better quality of executing the game, but also the advantage of calmer mind. I believe there exists the concept of so-called flow state when doing something. Flow means you are not bored, but you are not anxious or overwhelmed on the same time. Flow helps to make the activity enjoyable and effective. I believe training with flow state of mind can bring better results. Why I am speaking about being shaken? Because we will notice placing supply depot to the right of the barracks reactor when it is done. Now I see it is most probably not such a random inaccuracy, because I was most probably not sure whether I closed the entrance to the main base fully, so I wanted to have 100% impenetrable wall to avoid the massacre of the first game. Back to the game, what did I decide to do? I want the same general plan like in the first game, but with more defensive options not to be disturbed even more. Second command center I'm planning to be built on a high ground position, then upgrading it with orbital also still on the high ground, and after this flight to the natural. Of course, economic growth can be a bit slower here, but I believe the lack of disturbance and chaos because of possible desperate battles and retreats from the low ground can make it very worth it. I remember a sentence from Starcraft 1 Wikipedia where someone stated that Terran's advantage is that Terrans can make their builds quite undisturbed because of the faction defensive options. So let's try it even in Starcraft 2. Let's respect so-called time windows. That means different factions have different time when they experience a power spike, and at that point they should try to do damage. I am sure I will execute the attack from Terran power spike window a bit later, and I will for sure skip some objectively good options like Reaper Harass, Hellion Harass, because I'm not confident I can use it to my advantage. In fact, I have to respect my limits of knowledge, attention splitting and speed. If I try something too complex and quick, most probably I will dig my own grave with such an extravagance. There is a Japanese story about swordsman training a peasant who is going to face a samurai knight for the first time in his life because of some litigation. Master tells the peasant, just quickly swing him with the sword using the strongest blow you can make. This seems like a poor advice, but it is not, because there is no time to train the finesses of fencing. It is like the ice hockey team is losing 0-1, and in the last few seconds a player of losing team tries to score a goal from his half of the ice rink. There is some reason behind this. I guess, on the other hand, if a player tries to adjust the playstyle too much towards his own weaknesses, it can be detrimental for his growth in the long run. Production structure is 1-1-1 as was in the first game. Around 4:25 the second command center lands at the natural spot. Many accomplishments can be done earlier because small inaccuracies are making the process lagging a bit. Anyway, this is not so different in the Gold League in general, I guess. When the Natural is occupied, the supply depot wall is started. Even if incomplete, it should grant at least partial protection and buy some time for the Marines hiding behind it. Around 5:15, first siege tank is going to arrive to protect the defensive line at the Natural. Siege tanks have tremendous range. The Terran player should provide them vision to squeeze as much value from them as possible. In fact, they can be a well-protected core of the early mid-game army able to force the enemy to fight at an unfavorable spot because of their range. For example, you can start to pound enemy natural expansion and the opponent has to decide whether just to let the expansion explode or whether to try to break the defense around the siege tanks. This time it seems the Zerg is not doing early attacks, so the Terrans are just raising their supply and production capacity to prepare the big attack around 7:30 time mark. At around 5:40 the Liberator makes the Zerg defense a bit busy, then flies back. Sometimes the possible threat is more powerful than fully executed threat because it makes the opponent uneasy and sometimes forces him to make too many defensive preparations, which can limit his offensive power. Soon the reactor is finished at the starport to make medivacs quicker. Also, engineering bay for infantry +1 attack upgrade is started, and also 2 more barracks are produced that unit production rate can keep up with the growing economy. Limiting resource is the guess now. 2 refineries are under construction to fix this. Felipe Prado Bomb's coach said that when there are about 10 SCVs at the Natural, 2 more barracks should be initiated, then 2 gases and 1 NG bay. It is useful to keep some triggers like this in mind, When trying to execute a strategy, I was floating some minerals, so I even decided to add fourth barracks. I believe it is in general a good decision to add something which was not in the build order if I already slipped a bit and I have too many resources available. Newly finished barracks are adding tech labs to start important infantry upgrades, Stimpack and combat shields at almost the same time. Stimpack greatly promotes the rate of fire for a small hit point sacrifice. Medevacs are able to heal the hit point loss anyway, if in sufficient amount. Combat shields are providing the troopers more hit points, making them less fragile. Terran infantry gets damage per second and also greater standing power via these upgrades. The Zerg ground army is probably not able to outdamage medevac healing fully when receiving painful hits in some situations. The fourth barracks is being equipped with a reactor to pump out a serious stream of marines. This seems to be quite a reasonable adjustment towards my own war spending skills. According to Bomb's coach, at around 7:30, Terran player should have more than 130 population, and at that time Stimpack and combat shields should be finished also, so it is time to go. I am a bit slow here, partly because of war's execution, partly because I played more defensively at the start, planning for expansion command center not at the natural but at first at the main platform to fly it to the mining spot later. I have the solid unit composition of some siege tanks, medevacs and bunch of marines around 8 minutes, and I am leaving the base at around 8:15. I believe it is quite a correct decision to neglect macro a bit when the big army is on move. It is not optimal, and in fact it is a bad habit which should be fixed if I want to seriously improve. But if I lose a big army not looking on their march and I build something at home instead, this will be a poor compensation. This army ties a lot of resources which I am anyway not able to collect within roughly 1 minute of the march against the enemy base. Siege tanks must be protected. They cost a lot of gas. Siege tanks can be spread out better, but anyway, they are able to hit the Zerg expansion. Zerg army consists of roaches and hydralisks. These units are quite vulnerable from the tank splash damage. Terran infantry blocks the Zerg advance towards the tanks, which seems crucial. Terran losses are quite minimal. It is a Terran victory, and the dispute about so-called Starcraft understanding was not solved. This Zerg player is probably valuing the flexibility of threats and surprises more. The Terran player is more of a fan of methodic approach. And this makes strategic games beautiful, that there can be more playstyles and opinions, and they are sometimes not so universal. Thanks for watching and have a good day.